I want to talk on a very controversial topic, one in which gets women going mental, and that is parental alienation. Now, I've seen so many sides to this, and I understand aspects, but many people, when they hear something, they get incredibly defensive and they feel self righteous without thinking of every angle to a situation. Effectively, they let their own pride and their own anger towards someone cloud their judgment. Everything, when it comes to a child, should be focused solely on the child, not what you can gain, not what you think's fair, not what you think's right. It's like what's best for the child. And just because you don't like someone does not validate a reason to break up a relationship between a parent and a child. I'm sick of it. I see it all the time. I've done videos in the past where women just start going mental, and it's like, yeah, you're the problem. Unfortunately, you're the problem in that situation. Too many people see like children as a transaction. How much money I can gain from it. If you're not paying, you're not seeing the child. Well, that's holding them to ransom. That's holding them to ransom. One part I hate about this situation when it comes to money is this is entitlement, but you should have this, you should have that. It's not fair. You should be paying your way. You're paying your way. But a lot of time, like the other parent has to travel. There's travel costs involved. There's all sorts of fees, and maybe they give the child pocket money and things. So maybe there's ways in which it's subsidised in a different way. But a lot of women feel that they should be gaining financially from it towards costs and things. And it's like, well, if you're that bothered about it, let the child live with the other parent then, because you won't find the other parent. Like, I'm not trying to say that father's perfect in these circumstances. This isn't a case of preferring one gender over the other, but it's just making a point there that for the most part, mothers, they seek financial retribution. And they do, and they'll all jump around, and they'll make the same point too. Can be very spiteful, and I see it an awful lot, and I've seen it in other videos I've done with comments. It always makes me laugh because they're just not getting their head out their arse. Unless you've been in the situation, you won't know it. And if you blind yourself to different perspectives, you'll never open your mind. So, like I said, I've been on both sides. I've been on all sides of this shit. I really have. My ex partner already had a child before we had our daughter together. And there were circumstances where her daughter's father, he was often unreliable. He barely turned up on time. It wasn't fair. Sometimes he didn't turn up at all. And it isn't fair for her daughter to be sitting by the window waiting. And I was getting a bit pissed off of it myself. I thought this is just disgusting. Um, and you could argue they don't deserve to see her. They don't really. You got no class, no respect. Didn't contribute anything. So any time she asked him for money, it was really, oh, I haven't got it, I haven't got it. So he wasn't contributing anything. The best he would do is give her like vouchers. There's a discount coupon from a magazine. All this shit. That's the level we're dealing with. And she would often say to me, like, I'm not letting her see it. I'm not letting him see her until he steps up and starts paying and things. And I'm like, well, you can't hold her ransom. It's just that's a ransom. At the end of the day, we can take care of her ourselves. We don't need him to pay. And that's the thing, because sometimes it comes down to principle. It's like sometimes just let your principle go. Just let your principle go. Sometimes you just have to change your expectation and say, right, what am I dealing with? Do I want my child to have a relationship with their father, even though they're not the best parent? That's the thing. Sometimes you just have to accept that they're not the best parent. They're not a good role model. Okay. Are they dangerous to the child, though? That's the only time. That is the only time that I would side with potentially distancing from the parent if that parent is dangerous to your child, whether it's emotionally or physically. Because if they can't stop being like negative and abusive and things, then yeah, okay, there's going to have to be distance somewhere because this is just not fair for the child and it's going to cause them irreparable harm, or at least for a time period. But again, I think that's incredible last resort, like incredible last resort. Now, family situations can change. Let's say you meet someone and it means you're going to have to relocate abroad, maybe just to have a relationship with someone or another end of the country or whatever it is. I think you should think very, very hard about that decision. Because on the one hand, as a parent, as a human being, we have the right to live our life how we want. And I think some people validate it as like, that's only fair because I'm not being held ransom. But women in situations a lot of the time hold most of the power over the circumstance, and women can be incredibly selfish. I don't care. You can call it sexist or not. I've seen too much to just completely blind myself to it. I'm sorry. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm just not. I'm just sick of it. You can't say this. You can't say that. And the problem is that is what happens. Women meet someone else, then they get really spiteful towards the other dad because they want to alienate him away so they can build this new life. Because right now something's exciting and you're in the way. That's literally what happens for the most part. And if you're thinking about from the child's point of view, is that in their best interests? Like, do you really need to relocate so far away? Does it really have to happen? Why can't the new partner relocate closer? Now, there might be other logistical reasons. You can't say 100% what, like, it's impossible. You shouldn't do it. But I think you've got to really think about it hard. Because unless that father is abusive, they deserve the relationship with the child just as much as the mother does. And I'm sick and tired of this. This is why I get, as much as women get angry, I compose myself, but inside I'm like a fire keg burning. I'm like a volcano. So as much as a woman might want to turn around and attack me for my views, believe me, I want to attack you for yours. But I'm far more controlled and I'm intelligent and I can look at it from different points of views and I can understand why you feel angry. But I understand your perception is limited because you're too angry. You're not looking at it from anyone's point of view but yourself. And that's where the issue comes. If you listen to what I'm saying, you start opening your mind really to other avenues within this dynamic. So I couldn't possibly support someone deciding to alienate a father just because they seek a different life away. It's like, if that person's not a bad person, I can't be on the side of that because that's not right. The priority should be the child. And I'm not asking someone to be miserable and you can't live your life, but you've got to find a common ground. You've got to work together. You can't abruptly just ruin everybody's lives. A child's childhood is so limited. It's so short. It's precious. It's so precious. And people get blinded so heavily by their hate or resentment towards someone who they maybe betrayed them. Maybe they let them down. Maybe they cheated. But cheating on you, yeah, okay, it hurts your pride, it hurts your ego, hurts your self-esteem. But that doesn't necessarily uh, deserve an alienation from a child because that love is separate. That love between you, the way you feel about your child is the same way they feel about theirs. They maybe just show it in different ways, maybe not as reliable because everybody has their own trauma, everyone has their own things they're working through. I'm not validating that person's the best parent. I'm not saying that person, they stand up to what you've done for your child or they're reliable in any way. But every child deserves to have a father. And yeah, you can have step parents and all those things. But what happens when that relationship if it doesn't work out? That child's still going to be curious about their father. Now, I'm going to talk about my father because I do understand that there are extenuating circumstances. Now, I can only talk about from what I've heard. I've not had a conversation with him. So if anything's lies that I've been told, I would be outraged. I don't think it has been lies. And this is why I say I think there's extenuating circumstances where you can alienate if you have to for that purpose. So, from my understanding, which I've been told from my siblings, my mum's tried not to tell me too much. To be honest, I don't really like talking about it, but over recent years, she's been more open when I've discussed certain things. Not interested in per se. It was more just about different things. I'm trying to figure out my ancestry, maybe if I'm entitled to a different passport and things like this. Um, so, from my understanding, he was abusive. Um, and like since I was really young, my siblings are between maybe 3 to 8 or 10 years older than me. So of course, me being a newborn or being 2 years old, they're going to be maybe 8 years old, 10 years old. So they see it, they knew it. And apparently there was a time when he was supposed to be my mum's struggling, and he was just supposed to get some formula, get some milk or whatever the hell it is, and instead he just went out and did shit, and he didn't come back. It's about. And yeah, that's disgusting, isn't it? But that's that level. I've also been told he hit my mum. He was abusive. That makes me angry. Um, now, so I'm on the side of fathers to a point having relationships with their children, me being a father myself, and I've suffered from parental alienation. I've had to fight through family court. So I know both sides of it. But my mum has been my rock my whole life. So I'm not anti-female and I'm not anti-mothers in any way. My mum is aside from my daughter, which two females, by the way, my two favourite people in the entire world are female. Um, and what I say is what I say to my daughter as well. I'm like, if you ever have a child one day, never use that child as a weapon. And she's seen it for herself. We've both had our trauma we've had to work through. Um, and I just think it's really important to open people's eyes too. But in terms of my father, I've not seen him since I was 2 or 3 years old. In my 30s, so maybe 8 years ago or something, 10 years ago maybe. He reached out through email, and I sent a couple messages and I just left it there. And he did say there were extenuating circumstances, but he did, some things can't be forgiven. And he sort of owned up a little bit, but you could tell he was deflective, and I didn't really trust him. Um, so from that point of view, I haven't seen him since 2 or 3 years old. Now I can only surmise as to why. I think my stepdad, to be honest, because he was unreliable and he probably wasn't a very good person, I'm sure my stepdad, to be honest, probably told him to piss off and don't come back. And he probably did. Um, that's what I think happened. But from my siblings' point of view, they all said he's not very nice. But he may have changed now. But again, it's not here than there. So in that instance, I don't resent my mum or my stepdad from blocking that contact. My mum has made up for it more than enough. And I think sometimes you can have a parent that you can truly confide in, but there's like, I think what I'm getting at there is I trust my mum 100% in that circumstance based on the information I've been told that she did that was the right decision. I don't feel like I missed out too much. There is part of me that obviously missed out on that, having a father, because to be honest, my stepdad, he was quite stoic. It was hard to communicate sometimes. He was always family man, always there for us, but I didn't feel I could always go to him with certain talk. I'd always go to my mum. So I do feel like I missed slightly there, but that doesn't mean I could have done, because if, you know, men are men and some men are just closed off, aren't they? So it's just unfortunate. But that's not how I am with my daughter. We're very open, very transparent. We can communicate about anything. She tells me everything. She's recently got a boyfriend. She asked me before she had the boyfriend, do you think I should ask him? She's asking me everything. And then she's literally getting excited the moment they've had their first cuddle, first holding their hands. So we're very open. She very always tells me everything, and it's a beautiful relationship we have. But if my mum, if everybody had lied about my father and they had alienated me from him because of their own greed, I would have been furious, because it denies me an aspect of life that I shouldn't have been denied from, and that's selfish. So if it's important for safety, then I understand that. And the thing is, what people have to realize is they will be held accountable. You will be held accountable. So if you are, as it is abusive to your child, if you segregate them from their parent, that's causing them irreparable trauma. And if you do it for your own greed, your child may hold you accountable in the future. And that's worth thinking about. You can have your short-term gains, but if you give your child a chaotic life, they do start. People are smart. They eventually will see through the cracks, and your relationship with them may be diminished in the future. So although you win the battle, you won't win the war. There shouldn't even be a war. And it shouldn't be about money. Who cares? Just get on with it. That's the way I see it. It's like, just get on with it, mate. It's like crazy to me. It's like everything's always a financial transaction. I actually get pissed off hearing it. It's always these women saying, "Oh, we should have this. I should have that." It's like, why should a man talk about another circumstance by it? But to be honest, I had a friend at work. I've met a few guys, to be totally honest, who have been through similar things I've been through, but they've all got their own trauma and they've all got their own nightmare. But yeah, you'll get women in screaming matches saying how bad guys are, how they should provide for this, and yeah. And you'll just prep each other up lazy as shit. Look, I'll talk about that. But from those circumstances, these are self-entitled people who use children as a commodity to gain financial wealth. It is. It pisses me off. So, because I see it firsthand and I see how exhausted these guys are. So one of them, um, they left their partner, they split from their partner, and the partner took the home. So the mum took the home, so pushed him out. He had to go and live in a bedsit. He was working full time. He's working like crazy, and yet the mum has this house. She has the car. She has everything, and then she meets another guy. The guy gets to move into his house, and all of a sudden they've got everything. She gets to build the life of paradise. I don't know if she still expected payments from him, but tell me how this makes fair. A child witnesses the mother always have everything for the most part, or constantly moaning about the father because they do, and the father ends up having to try to rebuild their life, and it's a hard struggle because everything's diminished. They lose their home, they lose part of their wages a lot of the time, so they're struggling. Because if you think about it, someone living on their own, it's hard enough to pay your bills on your own. You don't get support. Your bills are still the same. Your rent is still the same. You can't get your rent any cheaper. You can't get your grocery shopping down much more for one person compared to two. It's a myth. Anyone that thinks otherwise, you're just naive. Because I live on my own. I have to throw half my food away. I can't buy a pack of a pack of tomatoes come in six. They go off. So half the time you go through maybe three tomatoes and you throw three away. You buy a set of rolls. You want a burger. I only want a couple of burgers for the week. I don't really need a lot. I get 4 rolls. A lot of the time, 2 of them are in the bin. I still pay the full packet of rolls. I still pay for the full packet of tomatoes. Everything's full packets and full packets. Your broadband bill is still the same broadband. Do you want TV? It's still the same TV price. Where is the price gets split? It doesn't get split. So if you've got a partner who decides to leave and take everything and then they demand money off you, you'll see a father trying their best to elevate their life, but they're struggling like crazy because they can't cope. They're literally going from moment to moment, just trying to pay their bills. And then the woman who has the house and has this extra income coming from the father when they get child support, if they seek it, which they probably do, then looks on at the father thinking how pathetic they are, saying, you need to really improve your life. You need to start earning more money because I need more money. And it's ridiculous seeing you like this. I'm sorry, like people don't like hearing it, and that's one side of it. And it pisses me off, and I get really angry when I see that. I get really angry because I just see women just can't, for the most part, women just can't seem to see it. And it's like, they just like pat each other on the back and say they're all victims. And it's like, you're not really a victim. You might be a victim of a betrayal in some way. Maybe they cheated on you, but then women cheat on guys just as much as guys cheat on women. So it's not really an excuse. You're either committed or you're not. It's like, it's crazy to me. But I just think people should be responsible for their own lives. And that's how I think it comes down to. It's like, if you can't afford to have a child and you can't afford to support that child, then maybe you've got to look at whether you can provide for them in the first place. If you can't look after your child without support from someone else, then maybe that child needs to go to the person who can support that child and look after them without the means to support. You know, I get fed up with all this child support shit. I think it's ridiculous. I think a father or mother, depending on where the child lives, you help where you can. You help where you can. I know there's some people that don't want to pay anything. I know there's some people that don't want to support with anything. Like my personal circumstance, I offered through Family Court to pay child support to my daughter because I would always stand up for her. I offered to make payments, but my ex never accepted anything. Every time I kept saying it, she just wouldn't answer me. She was always playing games in court. I don't know what it was about. It was always to try and make it look like I won't do anything, and yet I always offered. Now, she relocated up the other end of the country, 250 miles. It costs an absolute fortune every holiday, and before I was doing the weekends as well. So every time the holidays come, I have to find the money to travel all the time anyway. I send my daughter weekly pocket money. So I'm not supporting her. I'm supporting her directly. Anytime she asks me for anything, I'll always try to give her what she needs. So she gets her pocket money, but whatever she needs, I'll try to provide for her too, on top of. Plus, I have to pay all the travel costs. Now, someone might look at my circumstance and think you should be paying loads in child support and things. It's like, yeah, that's your opinion. That's your opinion. I didn't run off with her. I'm more than happy to have her back at any moment, and I won't ask a penny of her mother. And that's where I'm getting at. It's always the women that want the money off the man, but the man doesn't care about the money off the woman. Why is that? I don't understand why that is. It just doesn't make sense to me. I would have my daughter home, no questions asked. You don't have to pay me a penny. I don't want to see a penny. I will look after her myself. So why can that not work on the other side? You know, I think you'll find a lot of men, especially the men that absolutely love their children. You'll find a lot of men would do that too. But it's always seen that men don't care. No, men are just beaten to the ground to the point where a lot of them take their own lives, and I see it, and I think it's just deplorable. So I've done my books, like for instance, I show it here. but I've got two others. My father's daughter series. I haven't got image of them here, unfortunately. And that's showing my family to going through family court after family court. And I hope one day people, especially men, but not just men, women as well. And I say this a lot. I hope, but part of my legacy, I hope, is that people don't use children as a weapon. And I hope I can have an impact in helping people see that for themselves. But I also want men, especially, to see that there is light at the end of the tunnel. You can lose everything, and believe me, I know what it's like. When my daughter was taken by her mother out of nowhere, relocated the other end of the country, I had false accusations alleged at me to support her reasons for doing so, even though it was to go to a new partner. It was a whole load of liars. It's easy to feel like life's lost its meaning. It felt like my daughter had gone in a car crash. That's how it felt. Everything had been taken from me. And I was a shell of who I am, so I know what it's like, believe me. But all you can do is focus on just getting through each day at a time and eventually rebuild your life. It's find meaning beyond the circumstance. And don't worry about what people say about you, because people will put you down. Women can be nasty. Guys can be nasty too. Women can be very spiteful. And they can lie, and they do lie. Again, everybody has the capacity to lie, but it can get quite spiteful when there's a breakup, when it involves children. And people will bury their head in the sand. They'll try and act like they were perfect. Even I weren't perfect, believe me. I had a lot of arguments with her mother, her family, all sorts. It's been chaos for years. It was. Only recently subsided, and that was like 8 years ago. So believe me, it can get very spiteful between parties when there's different people have different expectations and agendas. But I want to show people, like I said, that there's light at the end of the tunnel if you just rebuild your life. Focus on what you can. So something I did, and it was like a few years in really, is I recognized my daughter has her life to live and I have mine too. Effectively, I was putting everything on the line for her. So I was doing all the travel. I was quitting jobs when I had to, because I had to be available for her. There's just a lot of sacrifice being made. And I just recognized one day that she's going to go off. She's going to go to college, potentially. She may travel. She may get in a relationship. So although she's my 100% focus, I still have to be healthy for me, because eventually I'll only have me left to an extent. But I wouldn't want the pressure. I wouldn't want her burdened by my lack, if you like. So once you do that, you just start focusing really on how you uplift your life. What ambitions do you still have? It's not about letting your child go. It's doing it in unison. So I've always been there for my daughter. Anytime she needs me, I'm there. If she says, "Can we talk?" we do a call. We could be on call for all day. And most of the time it is like that when we call. Holidays, I'll always see her. I always make everything available where I can. I go above and beyond. But I've also outgrown the circumstance, because I invested in myself too. And along the way, it's inspired her. So people can have an opinion on me one way or another, but I just don't give a shit. I just don't give a shit at all. All that matters is the relationship between me and my daughter, and it's as strong as ever. Like I say, she tells me everything. If she calls me, we can talk all day. When she visits me in the holidays, she never wants to leave. Now she's got a boyfriend that may change. I'm happy for her as long as she's happy. I don't put pressure on her that way. It's like I just want you to be happy. But our relationship, regardless of what others have tried saying throughout, hasn't changed. But her opinion of those who come against us, from her own experiences, not my experience telling her, from her own observations, her trust and her respect for those involved has dropped a lot. So although others, maybe they won the battle for a period, they've never won the war. Because I always focused on our daughter, and I always did what she needed from me at a given moment. So if I have to stand up and argue with people, I will if she needs me to. And I'll take a step back when she asks. And I'll always be there when she needs me. So I don't really give a shit what anyone else's opinion is. If someone thinks you should have paid more towards this, who gives a fuck? Shut your mouth. It's not your relationship. It's me and my daughter. I couldn't give a shit what anyone else third party thinks about it. I fought enough arguments with everybody involved, let alone a stranger. So I'm protective of my daughter, believe me. But I've never ever said that I want her to not have a relationship with her mother, because although I don't like her, and there is a level of hate, and I'll admit that, I don't like her at all. I don't like what she represents. I don't like her behavior. I don't like how she's dealt with things throughout the whole circumstance. We don't argue so much because I blocked her. But when we're on FaceTime, I still hear her and stuff. It's like I don't care. I'm just ambivalent to it. I just get on. But I would never want my daughter to never have a relationship. And I've always said this to her: situations I have with people are not situations necessarily for you. So I'd never ask you to pick sides. So just because I have a problem with someone doesn't mean you have a problem with them. And that goes for anyone in my life. Like, I don't ask her to pick sides. This isn't a freaking um, a loyalty test. And that's the thing. It's like some people just treat their children as weapons, and I'm sick of it. And I'm sick of this dehumanizing, especially fathers, because women come band together and they feel self-entitled. And I think if you're going to think about sort of relocating away from a father, you have a damn good reason why to do so, in my opinion. So I would never ever support that. That's not something I would be in favor of. Now, you can't control people. You can't say do, don't. You can't do this. It's up to you what you do. But I'm saying, damn right, unless that father's done something wrong, you better take that. You should take everything into consideration, because this is your child's life that matters here, and they deserve to have their father in their life. Because these bonds can't be replicated. You can have, of course, you can have step parents and things, but it's never 100% the same, in my opinion. Because sometimes you get like I've been a stepfather myself, and sometimes your hands are tied behind your back. Some women, they can be fair, but a lot of them always have this little overprotective situation where you can't 100% do anything, because there's always this level of protection, or this level of one against the other shit, and it does become a problem. And it's like, oh, that's it. We can't sometimes win with that. Like I said, this video is gonna piss people off, and it'll piss people off the first 20 seconds, and I'm sure it's pissed people off by the end. And I could give many other examples. Believe me, I've come across so many guys. As soon as I say about anything I've been through, like, you get to know people and you start telling your story a bit, they go, "Oh yeah, I've had that happened to me," or "My friend had this problem," and we'd all talk, and then we'd talk, and it'd be the same thing time and time again, where the woman has run off with someone, or the woman has done this, or the woman has demanded all this money, and he's suffering, and he's suffering, and he's suffering. Now, I'm not saying women don't suffer through separation as well, but I'm saying women hold all the cards. For the most part, they hold all the cards. And believe me, they can use some spiteful cards if they really want to dig in and hurt that person. Especially if the guy ends up in a relationship. The jealousy can consume people. They get really, really spiteful with that shit. So I know this isn't going to be liked. I don't care, because I don't do videos to be liked. I do videos to get people to think a little bit outside the box. I mean, a little bit of thinking about your circumstances, and think about the consequence of things, because literally sometimes you do everything has a consequence, but sometimes something has just a bit more consequence than you might think. So you might think about being selfish in a circumstance, but it will bite you in the ass one day too. If you just look at me, for instance, I've been ridiculed most of my journey as I ascended beyond the circumstance. I had people think, "Oh, you're wasting your time, you're useless," blah blah blah. I've never let my daughter down. It's just my finances have been hard for a lot of the periods, and maybe I do decisions that others don't expect me to do. But I was always long-term thinking, and now I'm outshining everybody around me. I've pushed past them completely, and they're looking on, probably thinking, "What the hell happened?" And it's like, some of us just don't get caught up in toxicity. We're too busy on focusing on our life and how we can improve our child's life in the future. So if I can't control the present, and I don't have much power in this circumstance, I'll make sure that I can give her a beautiful life in the future then. And you can take responsibility for the chaos that we all had to endure. I only dealt with the hands that I was being given. I did the best I can with the situation, but I didn't create that. But I will create a beautiful life for my daughter in the future, for sure. And I'm witnessing her grow into a beautiful young woman. And in all honesty, I don't want to overpraise myself, but she says beautiful things about my contribution. Like, yeah, it's nice what she says. So, I mean, at the end of the day, in my personal life, that's all that matters.